Hello students, welcome to this ethics class. Today we will discuss 2018 3A. Again, before watching this video, you should have attempted the question at least once on your own. So what is meant by conflict of interest? Illustrate with examples the difference between actual and potential conflict of interest. Let us see. Conflict of interest literally means conflict of interest. So what interests come into conflict? On one side, there may be values, public interest, duty interest, etc., which may come in conflict with personal interest. Actual conflict of interest means simply conflict of interest. That means if conflict of interest is present, it is actual conflict of interest. However, potential conflict of interest means conflict of interest is not present now, but it can present later if a certain action is taken. So potential conflict of interest means there is no conflict of interest as of now, but it can be present later if a certain action is taken. So let us see. We have to give examples since that is what the question asks. For example, a tender process is presented to a civil servant where one of the companies belongs to a close relative. However, if you see, the only civil servant is asked whether he wants to take on the tender process. But it is in an industry where even his relative has interest and he is willing to participate in tender. So civil servant has not yet accepted that he will oversee the tender. So thus there is potential conflict of interest. So there is no conflict of interest as of now because civil servant has not accepted that he will oversee the tender. But there is potential conflict of interest, that is, there would be no conflict of interest until he accepts to oversee tender. Only if he accepts that he will oversee the tender, then only there will be conflict of interest, because there would also be his relative in the tender process. So there is no conflict of interest as of now. So there is only potential conflict of interest if he accepts to oversee the tender. However, if he accepts, like if he has already accepted, then there would be actual conflict of interest because there is some personal interest in relatives' interest. So if he accepts, there is actual conflict of interest, but as long as he does not accept, there is only potential conflict of interest if he accepts the tender. So if he had already accepted, then there is actual conflict of interest. If he has not accepted, there is only potential conflict of interest since the tender is being presented to civil servant. Since the tender process is being presented to civil servant, whether he wants to accept to oversee the tender process or not. So if we see, it comes to around 119 words. This is a simple question between actual conflict of interest and potential conflict of interest. Here you can develop your own examples. I have used only one example, but UPSC has asked to illustrate with examples. Since one example was enough for me to explain and there is word limit, I have used only one example. Please use a variety of examples, 2 examples, to show the difference between actual and potential conflict of interest. Use your own examples. Ethics is a very subjective paper. The answer can be written in a variety of ways. So that is all. Thank you.